Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back, of course, to the Time Bomb channel, and I hope that all is good in your part of the world. On the channel today, a little bit of a conundrum, and of course, who better than the late great Stephen Wright to unpick a conundrum? I think, as he once said, I Xeroxed my watch, so now I will have time to spare, which I hope is true for you guys today. I think the video might run a little longer than usual. Topic of conversation, I think, is a little bit around fashion watches, and the video is kind of dedicated to one of the channel's long-term subscribers, James K. James, you got me thinking. We've exchanged several comments on watches over the last 2 years of the channel, and the concept of fashion versus tool has come up quite a few times. So as a consequence, I got my thinking cap on and I searched around. I'm not sure why, but the first fashion brand that came to my mind was Hugo Boss. They do fashion and they sort of do watches, added to which the brand has quite a curious and well-documented history. However, they've sanitized themselves quite successfully of late, and although some of their watches look okay, I'm struggling to part with my hard-earned cash for one of them, simply because I don't think that they hold their value too well on the second-hand market. Then I saw this watch here today, and it's undeniably a Gucci piece of kit. The decision was made for me. Super simple. I'm not comparing this in any way, shape or form to a Hugo Boss watch. Just to me that it looks the mutt's nuts. It is the epitome of tacti-cool. However, I do wonder, and I'll get into this in a little bit more detail now. Let me just get the plastic off and give you eyes on. There we go, our watch for today. I do wonder if the tool utility of this beautiful watch is somewhat overshadowed by the designer aesthetics. Yeah, I'll explain a little bit more about my thought process in a second. Let me just pause there and zoom in a little bit. And of course, I think we should probably kick off with some speccage because this is quite a beastie. It sits a very, very, very proud 63 mils across, and that's because we've got our extension on this side and then our extended buttons on that side. It is then only 54 mils north to south, not including those full articulations. I'm saying I took that measurement just up to this side here. So yeah, curious to note from that you can see it's not many watches are wider than they are taller. First unique point. And then again, it's a really deep dish pizza. It's around 18 mils deep. Gorgeous. However, somehow Casio have managed to keep the weight down to just 80 grams, and I think that's quite significant because if we compare it to one of its chums here, the GWG-1000, this comes in at a very hefty 120 grams, and it's very, very, very top heavy. So it doesn't need to sit well on your wrist, otherwise you really feel that flop. Whereas this one, the complete opposite. Yeah, it's top heavy, but the strappage holds it in place much better. And as I say, it's got slight articulations here as well, again, which make it altogether, I think, much easier on wrist. Also, just for reference then, the GWG's 59.5 mils across and 56. And again, it's about the same depth. So let me just open it up here so that we can see that better. Yeah, so you can just see there that actually quite deceptively the Gravitymaster just has a slightly slimmer profile, but it's still the same depth. Whereas this one then, has these kind of like buttress edges to it, etc., which make it stand up a lot more. And again, you can just about see the profile there. So it just dwarfs it, but only because of the width there. Everything else around the shoulders, on the lugs, etc., is narrower on the Gravitymaster. And as you might expect, let's just pop it in a little closer here. That's better. So as you might expect, within this beautiful thing, it packs a very, very, very complete module, offering a whole bunch of features like altimeter, barometer, step counter, compass, thermometer, and also the sunrise sunset function, which of late I've been using much more on this one. It was a function that I'd ignored, but I've been using it a lot more because I've been traveling a lot for work. Just find it quite a very useful little aspect. The other thing that I found with this one is that the app connection and setup on this GravityMaster was far easier and less problematic than many of the other G-Shocks that I've used the app with. The GBD200, this beautiful little shiny bile green watch here, I mean, the app connection on it was absolute trash, and as a consequence I really stopped using it for that. It was so slow, so clunky, just really didn't work at all well. By contrast, this one was smooth, quick, and zero errors. I was really surprised how effective and better it was on this one. What the reason or the rationale for that is, I've got no explanation at all, I'm afraid. Hopefully that will also be the same case for you guys. And then also for the Flyboys, it has what they call a flight mission function on the phone app, which basically records your altitude and your route via GPS. And I think it would be really interesting and realistic to actually see how effective that is. You know, get this on a flight or get this on a drone and fly it around a little bit. I think that would be a really quite fun video to make. For some background, these 200s sort of sit between the GR-B200s and the GWR-B1000s, and I say sort of because for me there are clearly links, but there's also a very evident set of differences and many changes over the first models from the 2010s. For example, the 100s and the 200s, it seems to be this trade-off between solar and carbon. Whereas with the 1000 range, I mean, man, they threw the kitchen sink at those things, releasing some super sexy versions with not so sexy price tags. But back to the watch. And one of the reasons why I like this one so much is the build of the watch is absolutely phenomenal. The finishing with the matte resin, everything about it, all over, I mean, is just beautiful. I mean, this one is rugged and robust and tooly, and I would never describe it as being beautiful. This one, by contrast, I think appeals and hits the taste buds in a very different way. I mean, the carbon just up the top there, combined with that dial, I mean, it is stealthier than a stealthy thing. Our triple button set on the side here are said to resemble the control stick of a Hilo, and here's one from a UH-60 in case you're curious to see what that reference and that design aspect was about there. I like it because it kind of distorts very overtly the symmetry on a watch. And again, not too many G-Shocks that are symmetrical. Try that one again. Symmetrical. So kudos to them for doing that here. The dial itself, let's get a little bit up closer, is not that common either. As you can see, very muted design tones on here, all pretty monotone, monochrome as they're referring to it. As I say, quite unique, quite special. But I think as well that the stealth aspect hides most of those normal dial attributes. I mean, that crossbar across the center there, you can see here, I mean, is very bold, but it eliminates most of the dial. So they sort of bring in the hour markers around it. Again, some odd design choices. Also, again, not common on G-Shocks is the use of, we can see just up here, I've added some close-ups, the triangles at the 12 and the 6, so half arrow down here. So again, good to see some dial design variation also. And as well, I'm afraid for the quartz haters out there, you will notice that the seconds hand there is hitting those markers with aplomb. Again, kudos to them for getting that so right. The negatives display, essentially, I found here at home works really very well. You hold it out to a good distance and you can still see digits underneath. They're still very visible. However, you get it outside and that's a little bit when the problems start and things go wrong. Now, it's grey and rainy here, so there's not a whole bunch of sunlight, but that's really when, okay, so our sub-dial there, our digi-display just vanishes. And then because of that also, the hour hands, markers, etc. Again, it's not immediately clear. You might find yourself having a double take to actually see what time it is. And so as a consequence, I've got a simple question. Could you honestly imagine using these functions on our digi display down the bottom here while you're flying a plane? I'm really struggling to see that. I just... they're so small up against that back display, as I say, here in the house with some good light on it, you can see them and it works well and I like it. But as soon as you step outside, it's kind of like, yikes. The Neo Bright then on here looks a little bit like this with that backlight also. I mean, it's not necessarily the wow factor that you might find on other watches, but to me, it's entirely close and fit for purpose. On the back of the watch as well, also to note that they've swapped out the shoulder pads. So by the shoulder pads, let me just refer to something here. So these more curved shoulder pads here that they've got on the GW G-1000. Here we've got something slightly different in that they've gone for more pre-curved straps to provide that hug. And as I say, there's a very little bit of articulation in there as well also. But I mean, on wrist, let me just throw that on now. Yeah, on wrist, it works brilliantly. Really does fit nicely. There's not too much light wind getting in through behind there, and it's so freaking light. It really is. That size just dissipates as a consequence. And as I say, to me, that thing looks absolutely drop dead gorgeous, sharper than a sharp thing. As I say, it's that 80 gram weight, you know, so basically the same as your average supermodel. Makes this watch so wearable that the dimensions of it are almost irrelevant, because, as I say, it just works perfectly. The other thing to notice as well, that they've got a very flared, much wider, again quite thin or feeling almost buckle on here as well with the double prongs, which I prefer also. Yeah, I've got to say something negative about it, and that's going to be battery life, because it's going to be about 2 to 3 years on these things, but you have got to wonder what the impact of using that vast range of tools on offer is going to have on the battery. Like, obviously, again, just referring back to the GWG being solar, you're just really not going to run into that issue at all. So it has to be, apart from the visibility, it has to be the one of the biggest weaknesses of this watch, if only it were solar. And this is where I think I'm going to doff my cap to James Kay for peeling the fashionista skin from my eyeballs. Kind of a bit of a rethink, and I think if you treat this one as a fun watch, you know, as a beautiful watch, as a great looking watch, and instead of expecting it to be your do-it-all ABC mission timer, I mean, you've got the GWG for that. And as I say, approach this in a different way, then I think you're going to be able to chill, kick back, and get years of Depeche Mode delights out of this particular Gravitymaster. It has everything that you need in a watch. Gorgeous lines and swellings in exactly the right places. The weave of the carbon through the bezel at the top there, clearly enough weave to make your tailor jealous. Moreover, the chunky molded resin, I think, is just, you know, resonating masculinity and gorgeousness. Even in that buckle, it's girded with alluring good looks from all angles. Yes, it is. I just cannot say more than enough how good looking. It's freaking gorgeous, this watch. It really is beautiful. And yes, of course, those dark, stealthy looks reveal a fizz bomb of technology inside, you know, that you will have just at the press of a button right there at your little fingertips. But, and here's the big but, bring a magnifying glass and a flashlight if you think you're going to be using this when flying your Cessna. However, if the watch itself and those functions are ticking your boxes, but you want to use this watch as a tool, perhaps as you might do here with our Vanuatu, or our very beautiful, equally beautiful Kuraburi, then do not despair, because these watches are also come in more realistic colours that I think have less an impact on those tooly attributes. The blue, to me, of all three of those, is really looking the best option to me. These are, they retail for around £300 in the UK. However, H. Samuel is a watch supplier here in the UK, and they had them on sale. That's where I got mine. It's also where I got my GWG and the Seiko MM200, all with very, very good reductions. And no, I don't work with them or have a connection with them. at all, but I do like to buy watches, and I appreciate their customer care. Thanks again, Connor, for offering me a very, very good price on this one. All right, guys, so yeah, slightly longer vid than normal, so hopefully you're still awake by the end of it. I really look forward to your comments on this particular Gravitymaster. What's your views on it, and the range in general, and then secondly, a little bit as well about your thoughts of fashion versus tool watch. It will be good to get that discussion started. All right, so many thanks as always for your time and for your view. And of course, until the next vid, this is your host, the Bombardier, signing off. Cheers, guys.